to the Eagle Eye Podcast, the number one show to bring you all things Club America in English, from tactical analysis
Pelota para la banda izquierda.
to player updates. We've got you covered on all the latest news on Las Águilas. Now, let's start the show. This is the Eagle Eye Podcast.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the Eagle Eye Podcast. Today, I'm going to be recapping everything that happened against León, the chaos and the outspill that was the aftermath after that game. And of course, Las Águilas qualified into the semifinals. We have an opponent already, so we're going to get you guys a preview ahead of the Wednesday game, which is against Atlético San Luis. And boy, do we have plenty to talk about in such a short period of time. And as always, let me introduce my co-host for tonight is none other than the main man himself, Chris Rivera. Chris, how are you, my friend?
A little bit under the weather, but it's that time of the year. You know, it's time to get sick and then feel better later, I guess. But yeah, man, I feel good, especially after this past two games. I know one of us wasn't that happy with the way we played, but we'll get into that in a bit. But other than that, you know, I'm feeling blessed, brother.
Absolutely. You're not the only one a little bit under the weather. I don't know if people will be able to hear it in my voice or not, but I'm in the same boat as you. I mean, we're going to dive into it and we're going to talk about it. I am that one person that had a lot of negative comments to talk about in these two matchups. But not to say that there isn't any optimism from me going forward into what should be hopefully a pretty exciting game against San Luis. So let's just dive right into it. Let's dissect it as just rip it off as a band-aid, really. So America, obviously, coming into this game against León, we were optimistic that we were going to get a good America side. We got a very rusty America within the first 45 minutes of the first leg. And I'll throw the first question out here to the man joining us right now. Initial thoughts and reaction, Christian, after the first 45 minutes at the Estadio León, seeing such a rusty America. All right, he is muted. Okay, Christian's having a little bit of mic issues. He's going to get that sorted out. So, Chris, I'll revert the question to you. Your thoughts after first 45 minutes.
It was frustrating for me because I felt León was hitting way too much. And I don't really remember the timing, I guess, if it was first half or second half, but correct me if I'm wrong. Not Delos Lopez, what's his name? Diente. Diente was supposed to get a red card, right? And I felt...
Yeah, within the first 45, yeah.
Yeah, and I felt... You know, I hope it doesn't come wrong whenever I tweet this. So, like, I feel like no one ever likes this tweet whenever I tweet it, but it felt like Central American teams in CONCACAF Champions League, if you guys know what I mean by that, which is hitting every minute, every second, and the ref really wasn't doing much. I felt he should have gotten a red card, and if I'm not mistaken, there's someone else that should have gotten a red card, or double yellow in that game too. Maybe you guys could remind me who it was, but
just it was Diente Lopez who was supposed to get his second yellow.
But throughout the game, there was someone else that was supposed to get one too, right? Or am I just throwing big names?
Yes, there was a second person. It's slipped in my mind, but yeah, no.
Yeah. Point is, it was just very frustrating. It felt very similar, except the result wasn't the same to that Monterrey game, where it didn't really feel like they went in there to win, even though they scored, right? It ended up being 2-2. But I felt like it was more to frustrate us. And I think you saw us being rusty. I think me and Christian touched on it, right? He said Sendejas was the worst player in that first half. I said Quiñones. And then the day, it had a lot to do with our fullbacks. I think we both agree on that. And it was just very frustrating that first half. You know, look, we get scored on right away. You know, 1 minute in, it was just a very frustrating first half.
Yeah, I agree. I think frustrating is the perfect word to use to sum up. I think not only the first half, but I think the first leg in general. Christian.
Yeah, no, I think you guys summed it up perfectly. I think in the previous podcast I mentioned that the break that we had, the 15 or 17-day break that we had, it was either gonna affect us in a bad way or in a good way. And I think we saw for honestly pretty much the whole series in both legs, it affected us pretty bad because in that first game, I didn't like the way we played at all. It was definitely a lot of rust. You saw that from literally the get go. The bad horrendous marking on that corner kick, which gave him the lead in the first minute of the game. What I did like the response that we had. I like that we chalked we kind of brushed it off a little bit. We kind of understood the moment at that moment. And we responded well. But then again, even after we scored the tying goal, it never looked like we were fully committed. We were fully in that tie. And I don't know if that has to do with the break that we had, or it's just just the players that just didn't buy into the moment. It just wasn't a good look for us over two games, and I hope that it was just because they had a little break and not just because that's how they're gonna approach this playoff. So I hope that all the rust that they had was kind of shown and kind of wore off in the first tie, because right now we're gonna need everyone at their 100%, and there are a lot of players who, in my opinion, weren't at their top level. So we need that corrected, and can just we overall we just need a better team, because we didn't see that America that we saw throughout the whole year in those two games, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think Harine comes out and says it in the press conference after the first game. He says, we were very much rusty. It felt like a new tournament starting again. So it was like having to adapt to that momentum, which Leon was carrying because they had two very intense games back to back. So that definitely helped them in the rhythm aspect of things. But America, I think, overall was able to manage this game smartly. And I think it says a lot, even though we like to focus on the negative. But if you want to get a positive out of this result from the first leg, it says a lot about this team that even though you're rusty, you're still able to go to Leon Stadium, pull away with a draw. Moments in times where you could pull away with a victory. Not to say that they didn't have their chances either, but it's not such a bad result when you take into context everything that we were just mentioning. The fact that we were out 15, 17 days. The fact that, we had players that were returning back from injury. Diego Valdez only played, 60 odd minutes in this leg? Um, both games actually. So you're seeing the positives here, and you're starting to look at it and you're starting to understand it. And Chris, I think there's positives to take away from the Leon game at the Estadio Camp Nou. You go into the second leg, you see how America starts off from the get go, and I think they started off pretty strongly. I mean, was it the start that you wanted at the Azteca?
Yes, and it was kind of a weird game to me because it felt like a regular season game. I don't know if you guys felt the same way, but it wasn't our fault, right? I don't think Leon played to go and look for that game. I think they looked to like survive, and for some reason they just gave off a regular season game. Like if there was gonna be a third game, and obviously they got used to that to the pechaje. Maybe they thought they were gonna get another chance, but they were gonna
Yeah.
lose and have another game. But the point is, I think it was a good game, right? We played a very good game, but it wasn't as intense that I expected it to be just because it's Liguilla.
Yeah, there was a lack of intensity in moments throughout. I think you saw a very visible, frustrated America at the end of that first half in the second leg, and I think the camera pans and cuts to Henry specifically as soon as the ref blows the whistle for halftime, and you could tell that frustration from your captain, from your leader, and he rallies up the team, and I think there was some heavy spoken words in that dressing room, Christian, in the mix before the second half started. And you see a much better America, much more. I mean, what's the right word to use here? A much more determined America going forward and trying to be clinical. And then, of course, the penalty happens, the Quiñones goal. And then from that moment on, you really feel like America's just not necessarily cruising, but managing the tempo and trying to manage the game out.
Yeah, this is kind of what I was alluding to earlier, that I just didn't like the way that we played over two legs. And I think I do agree with Chris. It just didn't feel like a very intense playoff game. While I think we did play better than we did in the first leg, it just wasn't that America that I think that should have showed out, especially at home against a team like this. And to Chris's point, I think Leon kind of played that way over both legs, where they kind of just like kind of stayed back and kind of waited for us to kind of make that mistake. And for a couple of times they almost caught us, in that second leg. If I'm not mistaken, I think Venus hit the post once,
Yeah.
of a counter attack. And then there was one that went just over the bar, in the first half. So it's things like that I think Leon kind of played for. So it's for anyone thinking that they were the better team over two legs. I think you're pretty much wrong, because I think we didn't watch the same game. It was definitely us creating, but like I said, it wasn't the way that I guess I expected us to. Uh, we weren't clinical. Our final third passing wasn't there. No, the decision making wasn't there from our top players, and that's all that stuff. That's things that need to be corrected heading into the San Luis games, because like I said, they just eliminated the most expensive team in Mexico. So if we're gonna need everyone at 100% if we're gonna you know book our ticket into the final.
I think Rusty all around would be a perfect way to kind of summarize what this America side was for both legs. And even though we saw a better America half in the second leg at the Azteca, still wasn't to the niche that we expected it to be. Dylan, you're joining us now after quite the hiatus. We know you've been very busy traveling around all the state, spreading the good word of Las Águilas del América. If you had to sum up America's performance in 3 words, what would you say?
In 3 words, I would say I told y'all. So I remember texting the group the morning of the second leg and was all like, all right, it's game day. I know the first leg did not go the way we wanted it to necessarily, but it's the second leg and we just got to run with it, and it's going to be different. And, even though it was still rusty, even though it still wasn't necessarily what we've been saying, which I've been saying, it's still a different second leg. And, we walked out of there with the victory, obviously on home turf. So, I think that second leg's a lot to learn from and to gather that momentum after being out so many days, like y'all mentioned too. Because really, I mean, when was the last time this team lost in the league? It's probably what back early in the season, and to go on that streak. Aside from Leagues Cup, I'm not trying to knock Leagues Cup or trying to not saying that we didn't lose in that time, but in terms of the season, we saw a lot of good football from this side, and that's what we want to see. And that's why I'm a big on, like, let's just keep things rolling instead of taking these few days off. But here we are now, and we're past an hour in the semis, and we just got to find a way to gather that momentum again.
Quickly here, just wanna pick your brain here. Henry Martin, a player that has so famously gone ghost for us in Liguilla's past, now seems to have found his talisman and has 3 goals in 2 games, and what looks to be hopefully a campaign where he gets to be the man to lift the 14th title. I mean, we made the argument that Henry could, in theory, be our best player of the season if he wasn't out injured for the extent of time that he is. He's not scoring as many goals throughout the season as he was last campaign, Dylan, but he's proven to be more than versatile in every aspect. Not only is he dropping, not only is he passing, not only is he pulling marks, opening up spaces. He just seems to be doing it all and doing it exactly the way that you expect it to be done.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's what you kind of saying. He's proven it time and time again. I mean, that's just who Henry is. That's just who you want to see from La Bomba. Just to see the guy, like you said, it's been injured riddle season a little for him, but just to see him still take those small chances, he's gotten those opportunities, and not necessarily just scoring, but like you kind of mentioned, just to be able to make these runs, pull some defenders, to open up some space too. He's doing those things, and he's shown that he's more than just a person that can score. He's shown that he can also be a threat to where these defenders are going to worry about him creating that space. So I think he's taken good on his opportunities, on his chances whenever he's had them, whenever he's been healthy enough to play.
Chris, you mentioned that Quinones was probably one of the more uh, what's the word to say? Not the best player in the first leg. Although I will say, and this is a very high compliment coming from me, I will say the second leg, I think he definitely showcased out. And there was moments of brilliance in that first leg as well. Him on the left hand side, he's doing things that I didn't necessarily think he was gonna be doing. He was trying to juke people, megging people, trying to do like little roundabouts. Just give me your 2 cents on Quinones on the left hand side, because it's an interesting one to say the least.
I mean, that's where you want him. I think that's what we signed him for. If we're gonna have, because a lot of people had debates that, oh, where are you gonna put Henry? Where are you gonna put him at? Where are you gonna put Valdez? It's simple. You put him on the left. He could play there. That's his natural position. He could play other places too, which is a good thing because you do want a player that you could be able to move around and they could perform in other positions. To me, like we had that conversation about who was performing the least, right? And it wasn't necessarily like, oh, it's their fault. It's just the way the game was, right? Leon would push through the wing, and you have Fuentes and you have Layun. You have to drop down, right? You can't let them have one on ones, and that's where a lot of our issues when it comes to offense come from. Personally, I think Quinones is performing how I expected. I think a lot of people are frustrated of the misses, right? But the thing is about a player that misses, I'm okay with the misses as long as you're like, what would you prefer? Like, and I know it's gonna be like, oh, well, I'd rather not have either. But would you prefer a player that shows out, that's in every game? Yes, he has his misses, but he shows out, or just one that ghosts and you're just like, where's he at this whole game? And Quinones, while he might have some misses, are just like the second goal, Henry's goal, right in the second leg. You see Quinones miss like 2 times, and then Henry just goes in and shoots it, right? But at the same time, I'd rather him have those misses and be in the game and have these opportunities and have someone that is just not showing up to those opportunities. So I'm okay with Quinones. I'm okay with how he's playing and everything. You have to contribute in one way. And if he misses, hey, we have Henry Martin right behind him or in front of him or side of him, or we have Diego Valdez right there too. We have Sendejas there too. We have Leo Suarez, we have Cabecita. We have other players that are able to score too. So I don't have an issue with how he's playing.
All right, interesting. Well, that's a couple of strong words from Chris there regarding to Quinones' defense, and I'm not going to argue against it. I think he's showcasing out, and the more the merrier. So, gentlemen, quickly, we got over the hurdle of Leon, which in recent years has not been our best opponent to face off. So Christian, just really gives you an idea that, okay, we're starting to break these so-called curses that I was mentioning last podcast. And now you feel like, okay, throw me whoever you want to at this point. I am the best and I have to showcase that on the pitch. But now you feel like there's really no kind of voodoo magic going on in the background.
No, and I think that does wonders for our confidence. Getting past this hurdle. I don't know who I was talking to. I think it was Chris I was talking to. Oddly enough, without disrespecting anyone, I told Chris that this is going to be the hardest leg that we had in this Liguilla. Whether it was Leon or Santos, either or was going to give us trouble. I didn't care what position they were coming from. I didn't care how they were doing all season. It's just something with the Leon and Santos name that we always get that always complicates everything. They could be on the 20-game losing streak and somehow complicate our lives to the fullest. So the fact that we were able to kind of get over that hurdle, get over that rust, get over kind of like a so-called curse, like you said, and now put us in the position to get us to the final. We're 2 games away against a team that you should be able to win against. You should be favored against. Everything is on your side in order to make that final. That should fill you with a lot of confidence, but is that confidence that may also just get you eliminated? So that's why I think we need our players to be at 100% mentally there, and while performing to the best of their ability that we know they can, just kind of get through it, uh, in a dominant way, knowing how they can do it. Don't have those little lapses that you did against Leon. Prove it from literally minute one in San Luis that you are the best. Don't give up a goal in the first minute, and just do you, because like I said in the previous game, and I'll say it again this time, you are the better team. You have to just go out there and show it. When you do that, no one in this league can beat you.
And it's like I mentioned, right? The fundamentals that got America to the point where they are today were so detrimental, and we didn't follow them in literally the first minute. We talked about the Achilles heel of set pieces and corners, and how we felt like we finally had grasped at a solution, and it's Leon, boom, knocks one right away. And so you think, okay, you get knocked down, you get back up, and America did so twice. And so again, resilience is important. You need that in a winning side, and especially during a Liguilla situation, like we know it could get difficult in Leon. So push through they have, and like we mentioned, we got through Leon, and now we focus on what I would think is going to be a very difficult opponent. I know a lot of people will paint this picture as, oh, it's just San Luis, but you look at the way that they went against Monterrey at Monterrey Stadium. They went toe to toe in moments where they had to. I mean, really, you just know that this is not going to be an easy matchup whatsoever. And I think we are all somewhat, just a little bit nervous because we've been here time and time and time and time again. This is the one hurdle, Chris, that we keep mentioning that we cannot get through. No matter what, it could be going our way and we somehow bottle it, aka the Chivas game, or we put ourselves in the predicament where we can't get ourselves over the hurdle, aka when we had to go up against Toluca. So I think you just have to focus, and like Christian mentioned, right? Be 100% focused mentally and keep your feet planted, because the biggest challenge is yet to come, even if it's San Luis.
San Luis is not an easy matchup at all, and I think people are got to stop looking at the name and look at those players, man. It's a very solid squad. Yes, there's names that you're probably like, oh, that guy's been around the league for a long time, right? You look at your Julian Down, maybe your Guemes, right? But that team is very solid. Now, I do think it's a favorable matchup because who we would have faced the winner of Pumas Chivas, right? If Monterrey would have won, is
Correct.
that how the table? So in a way, it's a favorable matchup for us if we look at it from that perspective. But like, let's not get it twisted. That's a very like good team, mind you. Jardine knows this team, so we should be able to have an advantage from that perspective. But even then, it's a team that is very dependent of their individual talent. Very fast team, very good. Julian Dam looks really, really good with them, which I don't know if I can speak for you guys, but I was rooting for Julian Dam when he was with us. I'm a believer in our little Ronaldo, but it's going to be a very interesting matchup. And when we're talking about away stadiums, right? San Luis is never an easy stadium to go to. Even if it's a home game for us, it's just one of those stadiums where it's just a headache. Just like León is, just like Querétaro is, just like a lot of these other stadiums. So it's going to be a very interesting first leg, and it could get ugly for us because of that. But I'm comfortable facing them second leg at the Azteca, and they complicated us things for us last year too. So it's our last season. So it's an interesting matchup, but I'm comfortable with it.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of narrative coming into this game, Dylan. I mean, you look at what Chris mentioned, right? You feel like you would have an upper hand with Harinen knowing a majority of these players, but like Midwestern Cholo says, San Luis's coach was a former assistant of Harinen. Could this cause any trouble? The regular season matchup was a very difficult game, and like Chris had mentioned, it's one of those stadiums where time and time again, America has always seemed to find a way to, you know, shoot themselves in the foot. Even though in recent games it might not look that way, but still, I mean, even though we've come away with some favorable results, the games have never been easy.
Yeah, no, it really hasn't. And just thinking back at the game in the regular season too, that game was in San Luis. So in a sense, like it's not that I'm not nervous, but it's just like we've been in that position before. It's easy to look back and look, okay, like what did they do different? Kind of in a sense. So I just really hope that obviously the nerves and the rust is off of the last two games for Leon, because obviously, like I said, it's not going to be easy, but we've been in that position before where it wasn't easy the first time around. And so now it's just finding what can you do different, especially this coming around. Come Wednesday, whenever you go back into San Luis for the first leg, and hopefully walk away with even something as simple as a 1-0 win like it was last time.
Yeah, you need something tangible walking away from San Luis, just because, it, like I've mentioned to you guys before, this is a squad that's been together for a while now. They've had their ups and downs, and they know they can't get past that semifinal hurdle. So I would imagine that plays into into your thought process coming into this game, thinking, okay, I've been here before, been there, done that, seen this, seen that. So what am I gonna do differently? And have that fear of, am I gonna mess it up again? And so I think this has to be a much more different approach. And we'll see what happens. We'll see exactly the tactical display that Jardine wants to put on Wednesday. Uh, and to that, I'm going to you, Christian, because you were very spot on in the starting 11 for Wednesday's matchup against Leon. Maybe a couple surprises here that we weren't anticipating, like the Kevin Alvarez situation. But what is your gut telling you for Wednesday's game? What is our starting 11 prediction looking like?
I think you rinse and repeat. I don't think you mess anything up. So we'll go obviously with Malagón in net. The back four will be Kevin Alvarez, Igor, Sebas Cáceres, and Luis Fuentes. In the midfield, you'll do Jonathan Dos Santos and Alvaro Fidalgo. And kind of in the camp spot, you go Diego Valdez on one side, Quiñones on the other side, Sendejas, and outside Henry Martin. The only thing I would want to kind of throw a question is how have you guys seen Jonathan Dos Santos over the past 2 games? Matter of fact, scratch that. How about over the past 4 games? I don't know if it's just me, but I've seen kind of a recent dip in form. It's not the same player I think I've saw throughout the whole season. And at some point, it almost like a little bit of a liability in that midfield. How much I'd rather prefer Richard to kind of start this series. But then again, I kind of remembered that Jonathan does offer a little bit more defensive qualities, which will come in handy against this team. I just don't think Jonah has been performing to the level that he was throughout the whole season.
I agree with you. I think he hasn't been at 100%, but again, just like you mentioned, that liability of losing a gap in the midfield, especially with a San Luis team that you know is going to try to get you on a counter, you're going to need someone that can track space and can kind of plug in spaces here and there, which I think Jonah is capable of doing. Richard, whilst he can at times, I feel like will get too caught up in transition, just like Alvaro Fidalgo, will have to maybe drop a little bit more deeper, and that hinges his opportunities of being a little bit more of that creative player that we know he can be, and he has been detrimental in key passes. So for me, I would say stick with Jonah. I don't know what the rest of the gentlemen want to say.
Yeah, I agree completely. I've seen a little bit of it. It's not like that noticeable because I do think that when he has a bad game, you kind of see the same in Fidalgo. Not like exaggerating. I think it's just whatever we're used to Fidalgo doing. And sometimes when you see his partner struggling, you start to see him struggle a bit. But yeah, I do see it. But that's another reason why I kind of push for Naveda to have more games, right? Because I always felt Fidalgo and Richard should be the competition with each other instead of like Richard and Jonah. And I feel like Naveda just from the style of play just is more identical to Jonah Dos Santos. But it's too late to to even think about Naveda at this point. So hopefully it was just a matter of rust, right? And hopefully this game he performs because I do think San Luis has a very solid midfield. I do think it's gonna come to that, and it's gonna come to our fullbacks, right? And it's gonna be interesting how this team performs in these next 2 games.
Dylan, you want to add on?
No, I don't really got much to say. I'm kind of on Chris's side too. I mean, it's not really that noticeable, but it's. I'm also on the side Christian. Just kind of rinse and repeat. What's working is working right now, so let's just run with it.
Yeah. No, I mean we'll see. It's definitely gonna be interesting to see as to whether or not we get a solid Jonah. But again, I think he is crucial. He's detrimental, and I think kind of trust in him a little bit too much to kind of bench him in a situation like this. And I think like Chris mentioned, I think it's just a matter of rust, really, to be honest. And I hope that coming into this second leg, you kind of shook that off, and now you're gonna play your best football. And look, if we're going back to what we said last episode, this could also be in theory one of those games in where you can capitalize on the fact that you might have some very tired legs come the second leg from San Luis. I mean, they've been going at it nonstop, right? Maybe not as much as Leon because they won that game against Leon, so they didn't have to play Sunday. But it was a very high intense game against Leon. Then you had to go against a Monterrey, which put you through the ringer, and now you're coming into play against America. So maybe you can use that as an advantage. I'm not so sure whether or not it's going to be detrimental because again, I do think they're going to try to conserve their energy and get us on the break. But I think we're more than capable. Although what does worry me though, Chris, is you mentioned that they have speed and they have pace and they have individual brilliance. And there's a left hand side spot that it just fills me with a lot of doubt. Luis Fuentes, what are we gonna do to kind of counterbalance all of that?
I think from an individual standpoint, you gotta just let them stay back. Don't let them have that space, right? And whenever they do have some type of space, have one of the midfielders go and help them. And we're gonna have to Quinones drop down a lot. I know we're gonna probably be critical of his offense because of it, but you just can't let him be alone in that situation because I mean I brought it up before when it comes to him and Chava Reyes, they leave a lot of space and we can't have that. It's just one of those things where we're in that position. We have a huge need in uh in defense, and I know me and Christian are going to talk about it a lot when it comes to a transfer window, right? Who can we bring in? But it's just one of those things where you just have to let Fuentes sit back, don't let him go forward, and whenever there's some type of space or pressure, just make sure someone's there with them.
I mean, it's gonna be one of those games where you think, okay, if you're smart, you manage the ball, you manage the space, and you limit those opportunities that they have to try to get you on those counters. So again, we'll see. Christian, I like the starting 11. I think you're right. Rinse and repeat. The trio that we've all been waiting for, Henry, Diego, and Quinones, really didn't take off how we wanted them to against Leon. But talk to me. Is there optimism that they might explode against San Luis?
I would sure hope so. And I think it has to do with kind of my kind of player. I know we're not up to the segment, but might as well just jump into it. Kind of my player to watch for the series is Diego Valdez. I really hope that these two games kind of were the ones that kind of get him back into that game rhythm. I don't think he was there at 100% over the two games. So hopefully with him now, having some games under his belt, kind of see how we function. I think that we're going to see the best of this trio, and I'm actually pretty excited looking forward to it on Wednesday, and hopefully it could bring out the best in both Quinones and Henry even more.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, and if any of you guys disagree, please let me know. But even at a 80% Diego Valdez, I thought we were much better with him on the pitch than when he got substituted. Like America's attack did not flourish the same, did not look the same, and I would dare to say was not even as threatening when Diego Valdez came off.
I agree.
Yeah, I think so too.
There's no one in that team that plays that position the way he does, and you could tell that there's just a difference. Maybe some people will say Quinones, but it's still not the same. I think that experiment of Leo Suarez and Sendejas playing there, just stay away from it. And I think Valdez is going to be key leading up to these last 4 games, or 2 games, potentially 4.
Yeah, I It's gonna be interesting. I know I got a blurry camera right now, so I'll fix that right now. But where's my question going? To this. Oh, Chris, who's your player to watch then in this game and in this series? And since Christian already gave us his,
I'll pick not one player, but two. And it's going to be that right hand side is going to be Sendejas and it's going to be Kevin Alvarez. Because we're talking about the left side, right, and Luis Fuentes, I think we can't underestimate that right side not having issues. And I think Sendejas has had a very bumpy road this for not the whole season, but it's been bumpy to say the least, especially in the last two games. I think there's bright sides and there's bad sides of his game right now, and I think if Kevin Alvarez is able to hold his own, I think Sendejas will be more free. And if Kevin Alvarez, and if they both do good right together, I think Kevin Alvarez becomes more of a threat offensively too. So to me, it's more of that right hand side. I think a lot of the game is going to be played on that side if it's not on the left, because I think the left might be too covered too much by many of the players. Right, the center backs might go that way. The our winger might go that way. Our midfield might go that way, and I think it opens up the right side. So I want to see what Sendejas and what Kevin Alvarez does in this game, because it will be, like I said, a very difficult game when it comes to the 1v1s.
interesting, kind of tying up with what Midwestern Trolling wanted us to talk about in regards to Sendejas and his Liguillas. A lot of criticism surrounding him and his lack of, I guess, impact on the pitch. Even though I will say he's been having a decent amount of interactions up front. I think it's a little bit of rust. It's also the fact that to be honest, I think he plays better when Leo Suarez plays a game before him, and he feels like he's losing that starting 11 spot. So I wouldn't be too upset if Leo Suarez starts to bring out the best in Sendejas as well. So we'll see though. It's gonna be interesting though, Chris. I think that right hand side is gonna be detrimental if we are anticipating that left hand side for America to be a little bit overloaded. Dylan, who's your player to watch?
Man, I got to go with my boy still. I got to go Henry. I mean, I
Yeah,
think
no,
this
yeah.
I think this could be a statement game, if not two games for him to just kind of really cement him more into what he means for this club and what he means to this team. Even doing the little things too, like you mentioned earlier, Ivan, that he can do more than just score and assist. Just being the complete player that he is. I want to see that from him, especially because we know he feels the colors. We know he feels everything for this team, and just to be able to be a part of that, and to go out and play after a season where he was injury bitten. I think this series is going to mean a lot to him, and I really want to see the best from him.
Yeah, I think we're all hoping for a Henry Martin performance to kind of reel it all in together. Really, like I mentioned, right, he's a player that we've all heavily criticized in the Gigas, and so uh, again, trying to see the best of him will hopefully be uh, a sweet joy to watch. Ricardo saying that the trident of Quinones Valdez and Oppenheimer Martin will smack San Luis, and hopefully he's right in that aspect. So I'm curious to see if, like we mentioned, Christian, that duo come to life. That trio, excuse me, come to life, and like I said, hope for the best and prepare ourselves for what should be an interesting and entertaining first leg. Which, by the way, is going to be on Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 8 p.m. and then 9 p.m. your time, Dylan, and then 10 o'clock your time, Christian. And then on Saturday, the second leg at the Azteca is going to be at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern. Should be a fun one, should be an interesting one, and should be one full of hopefully goals and excitement for this America side. And with that said, let me go and ask for your guys' prediction coming into the game on Wednesday. So I'll throw it to you first, Dylan, since you've been gone for a while. What's your prediction for Saturday's matchup?
I'll go with a 1-0 America win, just like the regular season.
1-0. All right, I like it. It's a very tangible result to take back to the Azteca. Christian?
I'll go 2-1 America.
2-1. All right. Okay. Filling me with a lot of optimism here. Chris?
Yeah, I'm going 2-1 also. I think it's going to be one of those games. And I'll even say Julian Dunn scores on us. And it hits
Wow.
at a
You think he
certain chance.
celebrates though?
I want to see the Ronaldo celebration, so I kind of hope so, but I don't think he does. Honestly, I don't think he does.
Well, we'll see. He's very fond of his time at America, and so we'll see whether or not he does celebrate. Well, since you and Christian matched up, I think I'll match up with Dylan here, and I'll go 1-0 for America. A clean sheet, I think, would be important. And you coming into the Azteca now, forcing San Luis to come in, score two, open up the game more, and then of course, you can flush the game out easily in the Azteca if those channels open up. So again, will be an interesting one. Look, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm a little nervous coming into this one because we've been here time and time and time again. And I don't know how many of these podcast episodes we've done already previewing these semifinals. That I am sick and tired of not having to come back to one next week. So, for the love of God, America, just get through, done, get the job done, punch your ticket into the final, and then we'll deal from that point on and forward. So should be a fun one. Should be an interesting one. Do you guys think, is there a possibility that this game could somehow be kind of determined and finalized for America in the first leg?
Of course. If America comes out and, like I said, asserts their dominance from minute one, like they should have in Leon, I think that this tie could very well be over in the first leg. That being said, though, I think it's that overconfidence that I know they're gonna have, and and you don't want to think that way, but you can't help but think that they're not feeling somewhat of a little bit overconfident going into this tie. But it's just that very reason that's gonna, I guess, kind of hold them back in a sense, and kind of lead them to make little silly mistakes here and there, the mistakes that we don't want them to see happen throughout the match. And then only for that reason, I don't think it's going to be over in the first leg. But if they can somehow get past that, maybe score a goal in the first half and then another one early in the second half, I can see this easily being maybe like a 3-0, 3-1, which in turn I think will just end the tie there, in my opinion.
All right. Well, we'll see whether or not that's capable. Ricardo saying, Ivan, it's okay. Don't worry. Big guy. Memo Ochoa is long gone. The 18th is coming. Ricardo always likes to throw little jabs at me. He knows I'm a big Ochoa fan, and he, I think, is the biggest Ochoa hater. I don't know, Ricardo. What is it? What is it with you and Ochoa? But I wish I had his confidence, though, because he's saying America's going with a 3-0 easy work. AP Jr. saying 2-1 for Las Águilas del América. And we'll see whether or not any of us hit the lottery in this one. But okay, gentlemen, I know it's difficult to even talk about a second leg because we don't know exactly what's happening. But I'll ask the same question that I did in the last podcast. If all goes to the result that you guys think will happen, what is your prediction for the second leg, Chris?
3-0 America.
Wow. All right.
I think it's going to be a magical night. Magical night in La Azteca. That's what I'm expecting in the second leg.
I love it. Chris got Ricardo's confidence right away. Look at that. Christian, what's your scoreline for Saturday?
I think that I think the team knows exactly what they're playing for on Saturday night at the Azteca after 3 consecutive semifinals. Heartbreaks, not just losses. They're heartbreaks. They're heartbreaks that'll forever be ingrained in our memories forever. Unfortunately, until we win another one, I think America wins 3-1 on Saturday night.
All right, 3-1. Dylan.
I'll follow Chris. I'll go 2-0.
Hey, what? Chris said 3-0.
Oh, you said 3-0? I thought you said 2.
No, he said 3.
Follow me the whole way, brother.
Well, I'll follow Chris, though.
All right, Dylan's go with that 3-0. All right. I mean, I'll be as adamant as I can be here. I'm going 2-1 at the Azteca. Job done. Sweet, simple, but I don't think we overexert ourselves. I think we have a lot of missed opportunities, but at the end of the day, we punch a ticket into the final, and hopefully we're back next week and talking all things great about a potential 14th. So we'll see about that.
Okay,
AP
let me
Junior
ask you
going
guys
with
a
it.
question.
Go.
I was
No, I was just gonna say
you.
AP Junior.
All right. Without getting too far out of this game, who's your preference, Tigres or Pumas?
I don't have one, to be honest.
I don't got a preference. I just want
I
to,
don't either.
before
I'm
we jump
focused
into
on
this conversation,
this series, Chris.
did I guess the winners correctly in the last podcast?
Yes, all of them.
Damn,
correctly.
I should have bet on it, but I didn't.
You did say San Luis, huh?
Yeah, he did. He said San Luis.
I did.
Yeah,
say San Luis.
yeah. The conversation, yeah.
No, I don't have a preference, Chris. I think you think any team that you throw in there will be the hardest 2 games of the whole season. I think both teams stack up well against us. I think that we're better than all 3 remaining teams that are left in the tournament. I guess. I mean, I don't know. I really don't care. It should be a fun one though if we do make it to the final.
Is it disrespectful that we don't care about Pumas like that? Considering,
I mean, it doesn't really matter.
I mean,
yeah, I know there's history there, but
recent years to kind of deserve that respect.
I get it.
Simple as that, you know.
Yeah, no, 1,000.
They're playing well this season. I'll give them that, but to get us worried about or kind of want them in the final, I don't think they've done much of that, honestly. So,
what about from a traveling perspective? Is that like, or it just doesn't matter? It's like we go play over there, we can play here.
I don't think you factor travel into a final, in my opinion.
No, same.
All right, so what's your prediction?
Anything add?
For that game?
No, we can't add predictions right now.
What?
No, not the final. That game.
Oh, okay. I don't know. It looks pretty level to me.
Tie is, if we thought the Pumas Chivas tie was going to be close, which we saw it really wasn't in the second leg, I think this is going to be a lot closer. They'll probably draw in the first leg, but I think Tigres comes out on top in the second leg.
Yeah, I guess I'll go with Christian.
Goal. Like a goal. That's it. I think a goal will just separate these 2 teams.
Well, all right. We'll see what happens there. Dylan, anything to add on?
I miss being on the pod.
And we miss you too, buddy. We miss you. But hey, we're hopeful that hey, fingers crossed if we make it to the final, that you can come on and we could talk America road to the 14th.
Oh no, I'm definitely gonna be there. I'll be there no matter what.
All right, I like it.
I'll say right now, if we make it to the final, next podcast I'm gonna show my face.
Oh my gosh, America, you have everything to play for now. Wow, that we haven't had so much. Wait, what?
I'm gonna show my face. You guys are gonna see. I won't be shirtless because I'm usually shirtless when we're talking. Too much information, but I'll show my face.
All right. Well, I love it. There's a lot of excitement and tension now build up on these 2 games. So we'll see what happens. But well, what can I say? Midwestern Chola saying, "Save it for the chip, bro. Save it for the chip." But no, I think it's fair. It's fair and right, and it's just. I think Chris has been teasing us for long enough about getting the camera, and we need to see his face for the final. If there is one.
Since 2019, if I'm not mistaken.
2019. It's been a while. It's been a minute. So, but all right, gentlemen, anything else to add on before we wrap it up here?
I'm all good.
God, I hope we win.
Yeah, no, same. But hey, fingers crossed. We'll have you guys up to date with everything on Twitter. Make sure you guys follow us at Eagle Eye Podcast over there. And shout out to AJ, who's done an amazing job covering the men's and the ladies as well, as the season is over for them, unfortunately. But yeah. All right. With that said, you guys have a wonderful time. We'll be back to talk all things Club America, hopefully sooner rather than later. And all I can say is Godspeed for us on this upcoming week, Wednesday and Saturday. All right. You guys have a wonderful time. Take care. And as always, Arriba la America. Good night.
Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, this was another production of the Eagle Eye Podcast, the #1 source for all things Club America in English. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Eagle Eye Podcast and get all the latest news and coverage. And subscribe to our podcast wherever it is you may listen.